Welcome to ReikiRealm podcast. I am very excited. This is my very first one, and my very good friend Tanys has agreed to help me with this. So I am so appreciative. Thank you so much. So I love just sharing amazing stories about Reiki. So I would love to just know how you got started in Reiki and how your journey is going.
Absolutely. So I'm so honored to be on your podcast today, Rhonda. Thank you so much. Yeah, so I always joke about Reiki being my gateway drug to all the spiritual stuff because, that's how I started. So I started off, so I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia when I was like early 20s and ended up in home health care for 20 years, worked my way up to management. And when I was in management, I was really like going through burnout. I was doing a lot. I was working long days. And so I was looking for something to help support me through that. And I went for my first Reiki session. I had never felt so good. It was amazing. So that's when I started doing it. I was like, I need to learn how to do this for me. So that was how I started into the Reiki. And then it was slow. Of course, I went and slowly went through the because I was working full time. I had a young son at the time. I was taking classes as well. So it was, I took my Reiki classes slowly so that I would, you know, take it easy. But yeah, and then, I ended up at a point in my life where I was like, I need to make changes because this isn't working for me. And so I ended up getting my master's and started a Reiki practice and all
That's
that stuff.
awesome.
And then started my business. And now I
You
teach
know,
and everything.
That's awesome. My story is similar.
Mhm.
I had one session and then I was offered a class. And the whole reason why I started Reiki is because I have an autoimmune disorder. I have psoriasis, psoriatic arthritis, and polymyalgia rheumatica. And I was looking for a more holistic lifestyle. So that's what led me to Reiki. And after one class, like you said, it was amazing. Like I could not, especially being empathic,
Yeah.
like everything's energy to me. So like I was floored. And then I was offered a class but I was lucky enough that I had the ability to do um my classes uh probably a lot sooner than you. And honestly, my Reiki business, really, the universe kind of said, this is what you're supposed to be doing, because literally the day I received my level 2 certificate, I had somebody from across the country reach out to me and said, I've been waiting for you to reach this level. When can we schedule? So like I started getting appointments like
Yeah.
right
It's
away.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it
It's
was like
right.
the universe is like, yes. And honestly, I put off teaching
Yeah.
too. I was really bashful about teaching because I was like, I don't want to mess up. I want to make sure I know what I'm doing. And literally, the universe is like, here's students. You're
Yeah.
going to teach.
That's pretty much how my whole journey's been, right? You start on something and you're like, okay, or you get presented with a client, right, with a specific issue, and you're like, okay, what do I do? We're intuitive, right? So we tune into, I always joke, I just do what I'm told. So I go into a session, I'm like, what am I supposed to do? I mean, I know the basics. You do the basics or whatever, right? And then they end up telling me, what to do. At least that's how it was I mean, it is now too, but even when it started, I would go in and I would do my usual, like what I was taught. And then there would be parts where they'd be like, no, I want you to go over here. And I'd be like,
Mhm.
okay. So I'd go over there, and then they'd start telling me more detail about, okay, I want you to like tap into that piece right there and just focus and so it was really like a transition for me, as I started becoming more in tune. Did you find that too?
Um, not only that though, with I had already started, I was already paranormal investigating.
Mm,
But it really enhanced my gifts tremendously when I started Reiki. But um, I started, I knew I was gifted, but I didn't understand my gifts. So Reiki helped me understand my gifts. And then it just instantly got intertwined with my paranormal stuff.
yeah. I
And
have found that as well.
that part has not, it just keeps, like you said, I keep getting stuff. It's like where, I do home blessing, what I call them home blessings. And,
Mhm.
cause I am ordained as well. And like all of it is just intermingled, and
It is,
I
yeah.
love using Reiki to, not only help somebody feel safe in their home and get rid of energy that's not supposed to be there, but cross spirits over, all that good stuff. But I do it all with Reiki.
Yeah, I've done a lot of that with Reiki as well. Like you know, we go out and do the home blessings and clearings and all that fun stuff. So, you know, that's where we start to, um, really, it does create that intermingling,
Mhm.
right? And then we just add to our toolbox with different things. So for me, I've added to it with, you know, a variety of different things. And I find that I don't know, it's very rare that I like just use Reiki anymore, because I have a bunch of different energy modalities. So I just like go, okay, what do you want to bring in? And then they bring in, and I find the energies feel really different depending on what it is that you're channeling. So Reiki's that beautiful, warm, comfortable, like a hug kind of energy.
Mhm.
I have aqua lead, which comes through sometimes, and that's like that beautiful, it's a beautiful, wavy, watery kind of energy. It heals the water within the body. And then another one is a galactic one called Nocti, which was downloaded to me in 2019. And it really changes it basically reprograms the cytoplasm within the cells so they don't hold on to grief and trauma.
Mhm.
And so that's pretty cool in that sense. And yeah, so I just kind of let it happen in whatever way it's meant to. And
I, interesting enough as well, had learned that I had a Archerian guide that I
mm,
gained when I became a master.
nice.
And he just, because you can't say his name, he just told me to call him Mark.
Mark, yeah. Yeah,
But,
I have one an Octarian, his name is Rigus, or at least that's what he goes by. So
um, so I think it's tied to a past life, and I love it. And, it I don't know how to explain it, because when I do my energy, when I connect with Mother Earth and I do energy healing, I was told that it's a very soft grounding energy. And then when I do Reiki, it's like, it's very, very strong, and you can really feel the heat coming from my hands. And he really helps me with that a lot. Um, and it's unusual because I also work with angels quite a bit. And it's just, it all seems to intermingle and work. And
yeah, it's beautiful, isn't it? It's all energy, right?
yes.
And so as we bring all these energies in and they just do what they need to do, because it's life force energy, it's intuitive, it has a consciousness of its own. So it's lots of fun when we start into this stuff, for sure.
So can you tell me a little bit? So were you a galactic ambassador before, or did that happen after Reiki, that you started doing Reiki?
After,
Okay.
after. Yeah, it's kind of a funny story actually. So I was um I had like everything that's come to me like you, right? It just kind of gets presented to you. Like so a few years ago, probably 2018 probably, or early 2019, I was sitting watching a podcast or not a podcast, but a show on Gaia, of Adam Apollo, who was being interviewed by Ruben Langdon. And they were, hello, pussycat. And they were talking about Adam, who is a galactic ambassador. And sometimes, you know, I'll have those things on and I'm doing stuff while I do it. This time I was like glued to the screen. I couldn't stop watching the screen. There was something about the story. And I had to actually, I'm an HR consultant as well. So I had to actually go and do an interview for one of my clients. And then I came running back to watch this thing. And as I'm watching the second time, the room filled with all my galactic guides. And they're all like, are you ready? Are you ready? And I'm like, yes. And then I'm like, wait, what am I saying yes to? And as soon as I said yes, they were all excited. They were sending all this love at me. So I'm sitting in my basement watching TV crying because the energy was so high vibe. It was that beautiful unconditional love. And then they were gone. And I was like, I have no idea what I just said yes to. And okay. So I just went with that. And then when I tapped in later on, I found out that it was that I had agreed to be a galactic ambassador, that I had agreed to start on that journey. So then in August 2019, I got downloaded this Nukti that I was talking about. And I was like, I have no idea what this is. I woke up one morning, my crown chakra felt like it had been like almost burned. Like I could, when I pushed on it, it felt better kind of thing, but it was like tender. And I went to do Reiki on somebody. And I had this, the energy in my hands was different. It was like kinetic feeling almost instead of the warm, beautiful, strong Reiki energy. And I was like, and I did the Reiki trusting that the guides were going to give her exactly what she needed. And afterwards, she's like, whoa, that was intense. I'm like, I'm sorry, I might be broken. I don't know what's going on with this. And she's like, no, it was amazing. It was just really intense. And I was like, okay, I'm glad it was good. And I went to see a friend of mine. We were doing a soul retrieval share after that. And he's an angel communicator. And so we all, anyways, we did the soul retrieval stuff. And then as I was leaving, the energy started in my hands again. And I'm like, so what's this? And he goes, whoa. I said, I know. Am I broken? What's going on? And so he checked in. He's like, oh, no, that's a new energy modality you're bringing to the earth. And I'm like, wait, what? He's like, yeah. Here. And he hands me a paper and pen. He's like, here, go write. I'm like, right? I hadn't done any automatic writing really at that point either. And so he hands it to me and he's like, yeah, go do this. I'm like, all right. So it was a beautiful day. Went down to the car, opened the windows, sat down and went, all right, what do I need to know? And before I knew it, I had 5 pages about this new healing modality,
Wow.
Nukti. So it was quite an interesting, that was an interesting exercise in and of itself. So I just used the Reiki or the Nukti for the next couple of years and then, the next year and a half, I guess. And then 2021, in January, I started getting messages about, you're supposed to teach this, you're supposed to teach this. I'm like, you haven't given me a manual yet. When you give me a manual, we'll talk. So next thing I know, he sends 4 of my psychic friends after me saying, I really want to learn that thing that you do. I'm like, of course you do. So which was fine. And then I joke about that, but really that's how they push you forward, right, in your journey. Anyway, I sat down and they did give me a manual for that. So I taught my first class. So when I was teaching my first class, I had a friend in the class and I had just finished doing all the manual part and I was getting ready to do the attunements for it, which is where you attune somebody so they carry that kind of energy. Those of you that are not familiar with the process, we go through them for Reiki and almost any energy modality. It opens up your channel so that you can accommodate that style of energy. Anyway, so I was just getting ready to do that. So we took like a little 5-minute break with everybody. And my friend who had been in the class with me, she says, they've been showing me this mudra and you weren't supposed to do it, but now you have to do it. And I was like, okay. So she shows me so a mudra is when you hold your fingers in a certain way, right? To create a specific energy. And so I put my hands in the mudra and I closed my eyes to see what the energy would feel like. Next thing I knew, I was standing in front of Commander Ashtar, my consciousness, not my body, my consciousness was standing in front of Commander Ashtar. And he goes like this, and I go down on one knee, and he does like this knighting ceremony. And then he says, come up, and he puts his hand on my chest, and he says, you are now one of us. And there were like a bunch of people behind me, and then another commander beside him. And they were beaming love at me. So here's me sitting on the computer. My physical body is sitting like right here, and I'm crying, and my students are back. They're going, we love you, Tanys. I said, I'm good. I'll tell you what's happening when I get back. Doing the multi-dimensional thing. And so I come back and I all of a sudden knew what I was supposed to do exactly for the attunements. I had no idea what that was until after. And then I tuned in and was like, so guys, what's that about? And they're like, oh, you're a galactic ambassador and a galactic teacher now. That was your initiation. I'm like, okay, then. And then, so as above, so below, I go from that and I end up getting introduced to the vice president of the Alliance for Extraterrestrial Diplomatic Contact. So as I'm having my conversation with him, I tell him the story I've just told you guys. And he says, "Oh, when did that start? Like, when did that all start for you?" And I told him, and he's like, "Yeah, they seem to be gearing up for something." I said, "Yeah, I think so." And he was, he ended up asking me to be involved and invited me to the meeting, and I became a galactic ambassador with the Alliance for Extraterrestrial Diplomatic Contact. And so now I have a podcast on there as well, Bridge to the Galaxy, that I do once a month. And I was so honored because I was actually able to have Adam Apollo on the podcast in December. So he kind of started all of that for me with his Gaia show, and then I end up with him on the podcast. So it was quite an honor for me. It was awesome. So that's how I became a galactic ambassador. A little bit of a finagly story, but you know how that's how they go. So
It's amazing how you're just led to do, like, we all learn Reiki basically the exact same way, but it's amazing how each one of us adapts it and
yeah.
how things get enhanced or we learn something new. Because how I do Reiki now is completely nothing like how I was taught. And not that it's a bad
Yeah.
thing. It's just that I was so honestly, uh, I had zero confidence when I learned Reiki.
Mhm.
And so I was doing Reiki and I was getting all these messages and I was just like, oh my God, why am I getting this information? Why are they telling me that? And I was like, I can't tell them that. They're gonna they're gonna think I'm crazy. And then
Yeah.
I finally got to a point was like, you're getting these messages for a reason. You're supposed to be telling people. And so I just do now.
Yeah.
And I have been for a really long time. And like anything, like if I start doing Reiki on them and I feel like they're not grounded, that's when I tap into the Mother Earth and give them some grounding energy. Like you just it's just really unusual. Like I will, like if somebody's got an attachment, typically depending on what kind of attachment it is, it's trying to attach to the physical body. So I will ask Archangel Michael, hey, can you hold this soul for me while I work on this vessel? And so he does. He
Mhm.
and then I do that, and then he puts it back, and then I can do Reiki on the soul and the body together at once. And it's just nobody ever taught me that. That's just
Yeah.
something my intuition has led me to do and just how I do things. And so I work with numerous angels now. I work with my guides and then I receive messages and sometimes they don't make a bit of sense, but you tell the person and it makes complete sense to them. So
Yeah.
it's just amazing how much it can really help and change somebody, and not only them, but us as well.
It's true. It's true. I find, my journey, although even though I'm a teacher, I learn just as much from my students and from doing the teaching, as I do in classes that I take. You
Yeah.
know, I find it's at which I'm always doing as well. I firmly believe that we're always learning. That's part of our journey here anyway. But I've always got like at least 2 classes on the go, distance learning stuff and all of that. I think that's what keeps it all interesting for us. And it's part of our progression as healers because we just add to the toolbox as we go along,
Yes.
right? And we all have our unique toolbox of skills and abilities and blends of energy and all of those things. That's why, I'm really such an advocate about collaboration in the healer community and the spiritual community, because everybody can use healing and we are all unique. We're going to resonate with some and not with others. And so there's no reason to have competition in this world in terms of this stuff, because there's plenty of people that need help and we
I
all have our unique
1000%
gifts.
agree. And I honestly, it's funny that you say that because I say the same thing, especially now that I'm a reader.
Mhm.
And I didn't realize because for the most part in the Reiki community, there's not that competition. Like I have always felt like if somebody comes to me, it's because they're drawn to me.
Yeah.
And I felt like, well, they're going to do the same thing with the readings. They're going to come to me because they're drawn to come to me. And
Mhm.
I just was floored to find out how much cattiness there. And it was just like, I refuse to participate in any of this. People are going to come to me. If you feel like you have to like act like that to get a reading, over me, then have it.
Yeah.
Because I want people that are drawn to me, that want a reading from me, and that what's meant for me will come. And there's no competition. There really isn't. My competition is me to be a
Yeah.
better person each day. Literally, that's it.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, I think there is some of that behavior out there, but for the most part, I've been doing readings and stuff as well online for the last couple of years. And I have just happened upon an amazing group of readers that are just like-minded, and it's just it's beautiful. And we have a group of chatters, like the best chatters. They just go from one of the readers to the other, and we all go on each other's shows, and it's just a lot of fun
Yes, we
doing
should be
that.
just supporting each other and lifting each
Absolutely.
other up, because ultimately that's going to get us more places than the cattiness and the jealousy. And honestly, my favorite thing about Reiki is the very first sentence that I was taught is that you need to check your ego at the door, because there's no place for Reiki and your ego at the same time.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
I have lived that for ever since
Yeah.
that statement. And it's made such a huge difference, not only with Reiki, but honestly with the paranormal stuff I do. Because
Oh,
it's
yeah.
never about me. It's always about helping.
That's right. And the paranormal stuff too, I want to bring that forward a bit, that really it's a form of healing when we're
Mhm.
doing that, right? Not only are we healing the house that we might be in and the people that live there, but we're also healing the souls that need to cross over. I know both of us do crossing over of beings and stuff, right? And so that's a form of healing. So it's funny, the impression of it that the general public has about the paranormal stuff. You know what I mean? That it's very that's spooky, and it's just a misunderstanding of what it really is about, because it's really all energy, and we're just helping the souls, whether it's the ones that are still here on earth or the ones that have crossed to, a different frequency, which is, we all go there eventually. And so I just feel super honored to be able to do that kind of work in terms of crossing people over and helping them find their way back to their soul family and stuff. So, and I'm sure you share that as well. You have such a big heart, so I'm sure that's a part of your practice as well.
It really is. I say that all the time. Like if somebody says, "Oh my God, I can't believe how much you've helped me," and it was just like, no, I'm grateful that I have the ability to be able to help you. It's
Mhm.
never. I always try to take the ego out of it, because it is. If it wasn't for we're using our gifts that were given to us for what I consider the proper purpose. Like it never should be like, hey, look at me, or look at what I did. No, I'm grateful that I have the ability to be able to do this. And that's how I
Mhm.
will always look at things.
Yeah, me too. I'm always supremely, and I say this often to my clients, like, I am supremely honored to be on your spiritual journey with you, as I am to be on yours, Rhonda. Um,
Yes.
the story of how we met is quite unique as well, actually. It's kind of fun. Do you want to talk about that?
Oh, you could go ahead.
Well, we met on a podcast. So
Yes.
one of my friends, and this was right at the beginning of COVID, when everybody was stuck in their homes, and we were just all like starting out with this kind of thing, and we're like, we don't really know what to do, but okay. And we met on Kathy's podcast. So she was one of the first ones to kind of jump into all of this, and so honored that I was included in that group. I've met some amazing people through that group, like every one of them that we interacted with. How long did we do it? We did it for a few months anyway, right? Like
Yeah,
every,
we did, well, we did numerous podcasts. Like I think we did an empath survival one, and then we did all of the chakras. And I know different people, not everybody could do every one of them, but like so we each month we did that. So we did that for 7 months.
yeah.
And we did several different, it was a lot of fun.
I think the first one that I did, that I was asked to go on, and this is how I got involved, because I was asked to go on and do um, Reiki and sexuality. I think that was the
Yes.
one. And that was the first one. Yeah, and I was asked because somebody else was asked and she wasn't that comfortable with it. And so she recommended me, and that's how I ended up on there. And it, yeah, it was such a great group. All of the people that I shared that with we were amazing. It was a great synergy, and it's really pushed us all forward to do more of this because it's so enjoyable and we can just have a chat and people learn and, you know, we learn because we learn from each other and yeah, it's great. So,
One thing I find that that's why I try to explain to people that Reiki not only it heals emotionally, mentally, and physically from past and present, and it also, my intuition has led me on and to try to heal people. Not every single person, but certain people, they need healing on past lives too. They have past life trauma that is interfering with this lifetime.
yeah,
And sometimes we need to try to help heal that to try to help them move forward in this lifetime. It's
yeah,
almost
for
like it
sure.
keeps them stuck. And I can't, it's so hard to try to explain this to people, but it was just something my intuition like taught me how to do.
Mhm.
And so I just do it. And then I found out I wasn't supposed to be doing it on everybody. But
Why?
so
I
now
think
I try,
everybody that's open to it, you know, it's still wounding that we have. I do a fair bit of past life healing too.
if I pick, yeah, if I pick up somebody that needs it, I do it. I
Yeah,
just don't do it on every single person because not everybody needs it, but
yeah, yeah. I always think, you know, I always let my clients decide what it is. I tell them about it. And then it's like, okay, so this is what I do. I do this, and this. So what are you feeling drawn to? Right. And I kind of go about it that way. And so oftentimes there's some past life stuff there that has to come forward. That was one of my first experience with past lives was kind of interesting, a little bit graphic maybe. So if you're not into the graphic, please don't listen to this. Close your ears for this story. So I sat down to do some meditation and I just grabbed two crystals. I grabbed celestite with my receiving hand and do meteorite with my releasing hand. I didn't know at the time that celestite and releasing, I was asking for angelic assistance to release past lives. And so I did not know that that was what the combination was. It was like an instinctual, oh, these are pretty. Let's do this. And I sat down to meditate, and all of a sudden I had this movie playing in my head. And it was like medieval times, and I was being like held down and like, you know, violated with by my boss and being held down by four guys. And so it was a little upsetting, needless to say. And so I ended up like crying and being like, oh my God, I didn't feel all the physical sensation, thankfully, but it was like reliving the whole thing again. And I'm like, what was that? And I had just learned the Ho'oponopono. And so I
oh,
started using the Ho'oponopono on it because I could still see the guy's face in my head. And as soon as I started doing that, it just released it all. And I had always sort of felt like I had been hiding something from myself. And after I had that, I no longer had that feeling anymore. I had like released the energy related to it. So it was super powerful for me in going through it. And I've had so many other clients that have done the same, you know, the same sort of had the same experiences. So
what's so unusual about past lives is that sometimes we have things in this life and we're just like, why am I so, like, why am I so obsessed with this? Or why
yeah.
am I so drawn to this? So you really helped me a lot
Oh,
because
good.
I used to date this guy about 8 or 9 years ago, and the relationship didn't work out, but he lived in a really old farmhouse. And I said, hey, you know what would be really cool is if you bought furniture and made it look like it probably did originally with old furniture, you know,
Yeah, like the
what
antique
they would
stuff.
consider antique furniture.
Yeah.
So he was like, can you, and I said, honestly, it'd probably be a lot cheaper, just depending on what you get, a lot cheaper than buying new furniture.
Yeah.
So he really needed a woman's touch. And he was like, can you help me with that? I said, absolutely. So I went on Facebook Market and I found this Duncan 5 couch.
Nice.
And I don't know. So we went to look at it and we had to have it. He had to get that. And I don't know what it was, but then all of a sudden I started, he getting him to buy tables and I found out Duncan 5 like made all kinds of furniture and
Mhm.
I can't even begin to explain my obsession with it. I was just like, it felt otherworldly. It didn't even feel like this world.
Mhm.
And what was so ironic is a couple years ago, my son-in-law took me on a mom date. He took me and his mom to the DIA in Detroit. And the Detroit Institute of Arts is huge, beautiful place, right? Lo and behold, leave it to me to find the one piece of Duncan Fife furniture in the entire place. It was just like, I'm so drawn to it. But you were able to help me figure out that I was connected to Duncan Fife in a past life, and that's why I'm so obsessed with it. And it made so much sense. I won't go into the exact story, but it just made so much sense.
Yeah.
It's like when you find out answers to stuff, it's like fitting that puzzle piece right, and it fits right in perfectly.
Well, and you can usually feel it in your body when something like that happens, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty cool. I had a past life in Egypt, and it was I didn't want to step into the personality that it was. So it took me a while for them to confirm it to me, because I was like, that's a big personality. No, we're not doing that. And then so I ended up, I was told that I was Nefertiti, or that I was a queen of Egypt. And I was like, right, yeah. And the next day I had a client who had a Nefertiti necklace on, and she pointed it out to me as her favorite necklace and showed it to me. And then the following day, or the 2 days later, I went to a garage sale, and there's a Nefertiti bust sitting in the middle of all these teacups, with this older woman thing. And then the following day, I go to a flea market, and I'm in there's an Asian store at this particular flea market. And so I had gone in there because I do ceremonial stuff with my Celtic shamanic high priestess stuff. And so I purchased an athame there. And so I'm standing in line, and she's gone to get a box for this athame, because you can't carry a knife or sword around, right? And I turn around, and right at eye level, right beside the cash, is a Nefertiti incense holder in an Asian store.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, interesting. So I was talking to this friend of mine who he was told that he was Ramses II. And so I was talking on Zoom with him, saying, this is what we were told. I don't know about this. This is interesting. I guess maybe I should look up Nefertiti and see what her life story is. I didn't even know anything about her, right? I go to Google Nefertiti. The first thing that comes up is a Queens of Egypt exhibit at the museum right near us that was on within a week and going for 2 months.
Wow.
And I was like, okay. And he's like, we have to go to that. I said, yeah, we got to go to that. And so we went, and it was interesting because the thing that my body reacted to was not what I expected. So we get there, and we go into Nefertari's. They actually had Nefertari, her sarcophagus there. And we walk in, we start watching the movie. I started to sob. I could not stop crying through the whole movie. And Ramsey was like, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's going on. I was glad it was COVID time, because I had a mask. So I could see me cry. Although I tend to be a loud crier. Anyway, that's beside the point. So anyways, I come out of there, and we're walking around, and we get to Nefertiti's bust, and I had a couple of tears, but nothing like Nefertari. And we get to the lineup of all the pharaohs and their wives. And Ramses II was married to Nefertari, not Nefertiti. But the Nefertiti bust is that's very much the Queens of Egypt overall sort of symbol, right? And so I was totally led to do all of this journey, to do this healing on this lifetime. And it was, you feel it in your body, like it's a visceral feeling when it's something like that you just can't deny. And that's kind of what you went through as well, right? When you found out it was your connection there, we often will get like either tears, or we'll have like the chills go down, or, whatever our telltale signs are, because each of us have our own. But yeah, it's pretty amazing how that stuff happens. I'm sure you've had other instances with that sort of thing as well.
I will absolutely love it, but it never ceases to be mind blowing at the same time.
It's true. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Absolutely. For sure.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show. It was great chatting with you. I had an amazing time.
My
And
pleasure.
I look forward to next month when I do another podcast in Reiki realm. And I can't wait for this to be loaded in Reiki Studio so everybody else can watch it as well. I know Kathy's super excited.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me. It was a true honor. It's good to
Thank
see you
you.
again. Thank you.